Welcome to the Venari Podcast and the next episode in our Chief Commercial Officer series. I'm Joe Knight, Commercial Lead for Life Sciences at Venari Partners, and I'm joined today by Eric Matthews, who is Chief Commercial Officer at Arcus Biosciences. Eric spent time in various sales, marketing, and commercial roles at GSK, Genentech, and Roche, and more recently at AstraZeneca before taking on the CCO role at Arcus. Hi, Eric. Welcome to the Venari Podcast.
Hi, Joe. Great to be with you.
Great to have you here. So, Eric, tell us about your career to date and a little bit more about your current role as CCO at Arcus.
Yeah, just to hit the highlights. I did start carrying the bag in sales with Glaxo Wellcome in primary care, and then moved into specialty sales in respiratory for a couple of years. Went back to graduate school for business and public policy at Duke, and from there joined Genentech in marketing for Tarceva in lung cancer. Exciting time, first time to bring a new targeted medicine into the lung cancer space. After Tarceva, I moved on to Avastin, launching in multiple indications in the US. And then ultimately, with the Roche acquisition of Genentech, moved the family to Switzerland and for 4 years took on various roles with Avastin, relaunching in lung cancer in Europe and took on a global commercial director role. And then from there, I came back to the States, did some life cycle leader roles within Genentech, skin cancer franchise, and then ultimately IO. While I was in IO, AZ came knocking to launch a new therapy into the stage 3 lung cancer space. Had some connections there from Genentech days, in fact, and so joined AZ to build their IO franchise and global marketing, and had a great time launching and building out that franchise. But ultimately, in 2019, I joined Arcus as CCO. It's been 4 years, and it's been great.
So tell us about the CCO role at Arcus. What has that encompassed over the last 4 years?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely been a journey as we've grown. From about 200 people when I joined to now almost 600 people. The portfolio has really matured over that time. I think about it in terms of commercial launch planning, of course. Portfolio strategy from designing proof of concept trials through to registrational trials is another big part of it, and the trade-offs involved in that. And then ultimately, BD was an early part of the role. When I first joined, I found that really rewarding, taking on how we want to represent the company, the kinds of strategic partnerships that would be a fit for us as we built out from a discovery engine into the vision of a fully integrated commercial company. And so that ultimately led to the Gilead partnership in combination with Taiho for Asia, which had already existed before I arrived at Arcus, but really helping to sort of facilitate and design the Gilead strategic partnership was a really exciting part of the role early on. Now with that partnership, there's much more like alliance management, which is not part of my role, but certainly that aspect now. Day-to-day partnering with the Gilead team on how we plan to build out and commercialize our medicines is a big part of the role.
So you're talking there about your time at various different larger pharma companies, Roche, Genentech, GSK, and AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
How does your experience from those larger companies impact your strategy as CCO in a smaller biotech?
Well, yeah, I've seen firsthand where larger companies can have difficulty acknowledging challenges or strategic mistakes. They can stay invested in programs too long. You don't have so many of those luxuries in a small company if you do more with less, clearly. I've also seen how culture is just so important in a smaller environment where people are working more closely together across disciplines, and you really have to be rolling up your sleeves, getting the work done day to day, which is really exciting. There's a lot of white space to think through how to do things differently. You have the ability to attract the kind of talent that you might not find in a bigger company that are more risk takers, willing to sort of take their experience and try to do things differently with you. And so you have to really be adept at that sort of push and pull of providing guidance, but also giving people lots of room to grow and experiment with doing things differently. You can't create a whole work stream out of one little problem. You've got to handle multiple problems all all at once. And so from that standpoint, there's no shortage of things to think through how to sort of get your smaller team into a position to compete with the bigger players. And so from that standpoint, it's an exciting place to be.
It's a relatively well-trodden path, right? That kind of senior leadership in big pharma, going to a smaller biotech and taking a leadership role there. I help lots of people think about that and how they make that transition. Is there anything you think you did that you would offer as advice to execs thinking about following that route and becoming chief commercial officers in smaller biotech?
The first, honestly, is the science. I mean, the science has to be unique, and to really dig into that, spend time with the discovery group, with the translational group. The only way that biotechs can really compete with the bigger players is to have something that's unique enough to break through very entrenched incentives around how to develop those medicines. And so from that standpoint, I think really carefully about what that scientific advantage is in the company and how that relates to the profile of experience that you're bringing in terms of commercialization. I think that fit has to be there right from the beginning. Likewise, with the people fit, with the CEO, with founders, with the executive team, that just also feel right away. I think spend time looking into the key players backing the company, from the board to the investors, and sort of how that company is started and plans to evolve. Make sure that runway for you in terms of what you're looking for to get out of the experience is really pretty clear. I think also as part of that feeling out process with the CEO or the executive team, spend time laying out your vision for how you plan to build your team from day one through launch. Commercialization, it's a process, right? It's a process of strategic decisions, of timed investments, and communication around a portfolio that's emerging from proof of concept into a registrational trial and into launch. And so that fit as well around how you plan to communicate your positioning and the company itself is really important. So I think going through various aspects of your thinking through that feeling out process is really important, so that you don't sort of get into a position where that thinking is not aligned at the beginning. And fortunately, certainly with Arcus, the fit was a beautiful one right away, and it's been 4 years in the making. So,
is there anything you think about your profile that particularly made that transition easier? So kind of, was there a certain pathway that you followed in terms of the roles that you had previously that meant getting to that CCO position was more straightforward?
One of the things that have really helped in your network as you sort of build your career is one of the most important assets that you bring to any new position, especially in a biotech role. So fortunate enough to join Genentech in oncology at a time where they were really expanding, and the launch experience is certainly unique. So finding those experiences as you build your career is I think critical. Global marketing, I think, can't be underestimated. It's one thing to start in sales or do some division sales management roles. Those are nice development, people management, leadership roles as you sort of build your career. But taking bigger leaps into sort of a global marketing role, and however long you spend doing that, whether you're in the States or actually take a position abroad, I think that experience just pays dividends, for years and years, because that's another way to sort of build out a network in a different way, such that whether it's the companies you're working with, or sort of the launch experiences that you're getting in different healthcare environments. And it's one thing to talk about launching a drug in the UK. It's another one to do it and to see the scrutiny that NICE brings to bear on a clinical profile. So all of those things I think are really important as you build your career.
Let's talk about Arcus now. So I'm interested particularly in the partnership that you have with Gilead. So you have this agreement to co-develop and commercialize next generation cancer immunotherapies. What does working in partnership with a pharma mean for you as Chief Commercial Officer, and how does that impact your decision making?
The partnership with Gilead is like an all-in 10-year strategic partnership. It's co-development, co-commercialization in the US. From the beginning, they have opt-in rights into anything in our portfolio that we plan to take forward, that they would like to take forward with us. So based on that, the strategic conversations about how to develop, a new medicine is happening from the very beginning, for proof of concept through to registration. And because of that, there's a lot of co-creation. There's a lot of thinking through the joint clinical development plan, whether it's indication selection, combinations, how something might fit with their portfolio, how we might think about combinations within the Arcus portfolio. And so it's a very dynamic day-to-day partnership. As we're still a couple of years away from launch, we're thinking through dosing, delivery, a lot of product design questions as well as product communication. So we're in a fortunate place from that standpoint, because we can build out how a full launch portfolio will look as we think about what they'll have on the market and where the Arcus medicines will fit within that.
So Eric, we were talking earlier about launches and commercialization. How do you think about those two processes?
Yeah, it's kind of like a common misunderstanding in the world of biotech, even in larger pharma companies, that they're not the same, right? I mean, launching a product is that moment in time when you've done all the work and you've got your sales team, you've got your marketing team ready to go. The whole company is energized around bringing a new product to patients. Such an exciting and unique time. Commercialization is a process of all the strategic decisions, investment timing, and communications that get you to that place. And when does commercialization start? It could be at that sort of early target identification, which indication, which combination partner. All of those things are commercial influenced decisions that require commercial input along with the scientific expertise. And within Arcus, that integration of discovery and translational science, clinical development, and commercial is close by virtue of the fact that we are kind of our vision is combining to cure cancer, and how to make those combination decisions the most informed they can be right from the beginning.
So we're talking about launches there. Let's continue down that path. You've obviously launched multiple products throughout your career. How do you go about building a team ahead of a launch? And I think critically, when is the right time to bring in commercial talent into a biotech to get that launch right?
I've had the experience of having to build a team after a phase 3 reads out. So AstraZeneca came to me when the Pacific trial read out earlier than expected at the first interim, a pretty low probability readout. So understandable that they had not yet fully committed to building on a team. That's too late. You don't want to be sitting there with your pivotal data and 18 months to figure out, your filing and launch, because the data starts to speak for itself. And in order to really change a paradigm, which in that case, nothing had been launched in that space for 20, 30 years, we had to do a lot of retrofitting communication back to how the trial was designed. We had to think through engaging a whole different set of stakeholders. That whole specialty had not really been engaged by pharma and IO, certainly. So to answer your question, I'd say when you're in that design phase of proof of concept, so when you're thinking about indication selection, combination partners, the sequence of therapy and how you would build out from a proof of concept into multiple indications, if you're in that position where the mechanism might have multiple settings to evaluate and sort of make trade-offs against. So really it's that proof of concept design that I think requires quite an intentional investment in commercial thinking and sort of expertise you'd want to bring into a biotech situation.
And where would you start building that team? How would you go about doing that?
In addition to a CCO, you'd start with an insights leader, someone who can do the analytics and insights around a particular disease state, the epidemiology, and sort of what's happening broadly within the competitive space for a particular target. You then think through portfolio marketing, so kind of early positioning and communication. And ultimately market access, within that sort of 2-year time to launch timeframe, you have to think through, payer communications and positioning, think through not just pricing and market access, but how you design your phase 3 as far as PROs, so patient reported outcomes, ways to really position the phase 3 evidence against real world evidence. So not just what you're going to bring to bear with your registrational trial, but how it might fit with current practice. So all of those things I think require those 3 prongs is sort of a pretty classical approach, sort of market insights, marketing itself, and then market access.
Eric, it was a pleasure to have you on the Venari podcast. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, great to see you. Hope it was helpful. Thanks.